All right, Dune Prophecy. First episode's currently out on HBO Max of the 6 episode series. Before we get into my thoughts on the episode and the show so far, I want to give a little bit of context on me and Dune and my relationship to it so you know a bit where I'm coming from and can hopefully elucidate your thoughts more on my thoughts for it. So, I have not read any books ever in my life, let alone the Dune books, but I'm a big fan of these recent movies, the Denis Villeneuve films, Dune Part 1 and Part 2 with Timothée Chalamet and Zendaya and all that jazz. Big fan of those. Saw the first movie like, oh god, 13 times before it left theaters. Yeah, we're not going to talk about that anymore. But yeah, really love the second one, so I was really excited for this Dune Prophecy show. And so far, it seems like they're at least taking it seriously. So let's get into my quick thoughts on the matter now that you know that I have no idea what's going on in the books or what this may be based off of. So, if you don't know, what the show, at least so far, seems to be about is the Bene Gesserit, or at the very least, the early days of the Bene Gesserit, as this takes place about 10,000 years before Paul Atreides is even born. So, the show starts off pretty darn strong visually, at the very least. We see a lot of images and flashbacks from this AI machine war that happened long ago and how that ties into the Bene Gesserit and its roots. But basically, we get a huge exposition dump, which wasn't really the best first impression. It felt like the first, oh, golly, 10 minutes of this episode were just exposition galore. And I was like, man, is this going to go on for the whole episode? But no, thankfully it didn't. Once you got past the really cool stuff that's glanced over in the initial exposition, we the show kind of picks its stride up a little bit. Although you do kind of look at some of this and say, wait a minute, I want to see a whole episode on this machine war and the Bene Gesserit lady trying to her name was Raquella? I think Raquella? Yeah, that sounds right. And you want to see an episode on Raquella learning that she can manipulate to the ways of these leaders by being this truth seer and this organization of truth seers starting it. But no, we kind of just glance past that, which is kind of disappointing. But eventually the exposition dump stops and we get right into it. And once we get right into it, it starts to feel a lot better because you realize immediately that the world of Dune, the atmosphere of Dune, is still there, at the very least from the movies. This feels like a big budget show already. And I don't know if they're just wowing us since it's the first episode, but the budget really lends to this Dune flair that the movies kind of set up this expectation of, right? So I really like that, especially the world of Salusa Secundus that most of this takes place on, the Imperial homeworld. Everything just feels ornate and royal, kind of like the rest of what I've come to expect from the Dune universe right now. So that's probably my biggest takeaway from the show so far, but we'll keep going on to it. So the show follows a specific sister of the Bene Gesserit as she tries to hatch this plan that's supposedly been going on for a long time now, over 100 years, to get some sort of Bene Gesserit power on the throne. Not just Truth Seer, but get, if not an empress, as close to that as possible. So, and this lady, let me look up her name. Hold up. Let me. Emily Watson. Yeah, she's doing a great job. She's already chewing up scenery. She has this real gravitas to her that you come to expect from a wizened Bene Gesserit sister. Her sister is also pretty strongly played by Olivia Williams, who's doing a great job so far. Both of them, I think one of the best scenes of the show so far was just them talking, kind of talking about their next successor and who should help shadow this princess that's coming into the Bene Gesserit, which leads me into my next talking point. What appears to be the meat of the show, or at least what's going to be the meat of the show, is focus on this Princess Inez, I believe it's pronounced, who is playing the long game for us and our interest right now. So she sounds like she's joining the Bene Gesserit, and to do so, she is part of this wedding pact between her and like a 10-year-old boy. And she's going to join the Bene Gesserit for 10 years until he's of age so they can have a normal marriage, but she wants, for some reason, Bene Gesserit power. So that to me is the most interesting part of the show thus far, or at least the thing that I'm most interested to see, because through Inez, we've seen some really strong potential that this show could have. So basically, first and foremost, straight out of Game of Thrones, or at least what shows how influenced Game of Thrones was by Dune. A scene basically ripped out from one of the earlier seasons of Game of Thrones, where two houses come together via a marriage pact in exchange for warships. Like it felt so Game of Thrones, and it was like, dang man, that's reminds me of some really good television. Maybe this will be some good television. But also is exciting because we know Inez is going to join this early version of the Bene Gesserit, and hopefully we get to see that through her eyes. We got a little bit of that during this past episode, in which you see some of the training they got to do, where they're looking at this deconstructed brain, talking about how lying is one of the hardest things a human being can do because it takes so much skill to do so, this is leading into a lesson on how to detect lies as truth seers. Really, really cool scene. Also, really cool scene where you can see them practicing lie detection on some old criminals that they've gathered up. I thought that was really awesome, although I wanted a bit more in depth practice on there. I'm hoping we get to see more of this training for through the eyes of Inez as she joins the Bene Gesserit, as well as the struggles she's got to overcome. That's the kind of part that I'm most excited to see as these episodes go on. I really just want like a Dune version of the first Kingsman movie, if you remember that. I love a good training or school moment where we get to learn more about the world through a new student's eyes. So but man, also really great ending. Really great ending that sets both curiosity and stakes for the show and for the characters. Basically, we see a guy who survived this attack on Arrakis come back. Maybe he's lying. It looks like based on some really convenient security footage that Mark Strong, or the current emperor in the show, is reviewing. But yeah, so I guess he has fire powers because that 10-year-old boy Inez married, yeah, he's now dead from a really, really disturbing scene of him basically burning him alive. So, and we see that on the Bene Gesserit sister as well. A lot of questions posed there, a lot of what ifs, a lot of things that I'm interested to see. So I think this did a really good job as a first episode. Really good net positive on the show so far. It did exactly what it needed to do. Once you got past that rough exposition dump, you're thrown right back into the Dune world. You seat really comfortably back into it thanks to some really good budget, some really good use of that budget with his direction and art design. And more remains to be seen outside the exposition. I want to kind of experience some of that myself. But now that I'm sunk to this world and it's giving me questions to come back for the next episode, I'm feeling good so far. So overall, very positive on Dune Prophecy. We'll see how episode 2 looks. But what did you think? Did you like the first episode of Dune Prophecy? Where do you think the show's going? What do you like so far? What do you not like so far? What do you really, really hope to see? Let me know down below. Like, subscribe. Thank you very much. See you next time. Goodbye.